Greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Starlight Glimmer here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario vs Donkey Kong Remake for the Nintendo Switch. So last time we've essentially did manage able to continue playing through the time attack mode by tackling through Mystic Forest, as well as Twilight City, Mario Toy Factory, alongside with Donkey Kong Jungle Plus, Fire Mountain Plus, Merry Miniland Plus, and of course Spooky House Plus. So today, for this video, is about the fact that if you couldn't tell already, this is going to be the true finale in terms of the forms of the Mario vs Donkey Kong Switch remake as far as the Let's Play goes. Because of this though, we are about to be able to exponentially try to wrap things up everything on the likes of time attack mode. Because if you couldn't tell already, is about the fact that we're about to be going on to Slippery Summons Plus now, and exponentially we'll end things off with the majority of the expert stages. So because of this though, thankfully it should be a lot more quicker as far as some stages are concerned, just because like I've already established that before, that the plus levels, including with the expert stages coming up, thankfully the entire stages are pretty short as far as this is concerned, despite the fact that if you couldn't tell already is about the fact that like I've already established that before, since it during the forms of it not only in last week, but also with the forms of yesterday as well, that this is still basically post-commentary in case if you want to know of what is going to be happening. So because of this though, yeah, a few things I want to explain for this point today. That's what appears to be about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 31st of March today, in some cases in 2024 today, and as it turns out is about the fact that not only this is the final day for March in 2024, but it's also worth noting for is about the fact that, well, Happy Easter everyone, especially notable because from what I can gather about the fact that I'm sure a lot of people attempt to celebrate Easter for not only just trying to able to get some chocolate eggs, or especially noticeable just trying to able to, well, spend some time with the forms of your family and friends when it comes to likely for its Easter eggs and anything else to be more specific. Although mind you about the fact that I've only got one chocolate egg thanks to Pinkie Pie, that she did manage to able to make one of those chocolate eggs from scratch. So as a result, kudos to Pinkie Pie because obviously she was the greatest friend after all, especially noticeable because, well, similar to the forms of how it does it from the likes of in, well, I don't know about you, because it has been quite some time since I've last seen Pinkie Pie, because I was spending most of my time with the forms of, you know, playing games and all that stuff, alongside with having a chat with, you know, Trixie as far as this is concerned. I mean, relatively speaking, oh, that's what I could really say, but anyway, before I get into more details on that specific topic worth noting for, this is the stage I was on about. In regards to the forms, there's very strict timing window, especially noticeable if you really want to complete this stage on time attack mode, you better not make any mistakes at all, because otherwise, if you couldn't tell, if you mess up a little bit, obviously though, if you don't make it in the nick of time, like as you can see on screen, I somehow barely got close in regards to the forms of trying to make it towards the end by 27 milliseconds. So yeah, I can classify for saying about the fact that with level 6-4 plus is often considered as to be one of the toughest time attack stages in the entire game, just because of all that particular ridiculous timing you have to put up with, because again, you have to rely on ice physics, and on top of all that stuff though, you have to rely on the forms of that Mini Mario AI pattern, which as a result, it can be pretty tight at times. So either way, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is about the fact that, do you guys even remember about the fact that Coco Bandicoot, that she's already talked about this, ever since in Journey Forms been Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series so far, that she already stated about the fact that, yeah, we did recently enjoy seeing Kung Fu Panda 4. Now, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that, like what she's already stated this before, it's not perfect by any means, it certainly was a good one, but I will say, out of all the actual Kung Fu Panda films I recently saw, throughout the years anyway, that I would like to able to point things out of the actual quick list of, let's just say, both best films to worst films in regards to the films of the Kung Fu Panda film series. Easily though, that when it comes to the best films I've seen, Obviously though, Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2 are considered to be the best ones, and followed by the films of Kung Fu Panda 3, like, still is pretty amazing though, don't get me wrong. Like, that was actually the best way to able to end things off with this entire trilogy of the Kung Fu Panda film series. But I will say though is about the fact that Kung Fu Panda 4, don't get me wrong, it certainly was a good time, but I will admit though, it is definitely one of the weakest films of the entire saga in terms of the films of the Kung Fu Panda film series. Again, it's actually a very similar situation as the films of how it does it for Toy Story 4 back in Journey films of in 2019. Like, some people seem to say that Toy Story 4 is often considered to be the weakest of the Toy Story film franchises, which is understandably so, mainly due to the films of the lack of character development, and on top of all that stuff though, the majority of the characters from the past have been sidelined, and as a result they want to classify able to do a bit of a, well, somewhat of a controversial choices. Like, for instance, they heavily rely on the forms of some new additional characters, and on top of all that stuff though, I think that's as far as I can try to talk about that. So because of that though, again, we're not going to mention any spoilers for the sake of Kung Fu Panda 4, just because obviously that film recently came out, so I don't suppose we can probably talk about that anytime soon. So instead, actually, as it turns out, actually, that what if I did manage to search upon HMV website, which, as it turns out, is about the fact that recently we're about to be getting a 4K Ultra HD steelbook for the likes of Kung Fu Panda 1 that is going to be coming until April 22nd in this year. So yeah, perfect opportunity to able to actually get the films of the first film again, except this time it's going to be running on 4K Ultra HD. So because of that though, and I just gotta say, I really love the actual steelbook artwork that features Po alongside with Master Shifu, and then once you open up the case, whenever I did look upon the actual images and stuff like that, it does show us the actual image of the Furious 5, which is pretty cool though, I must say. Especially noticeable because, relatively speaking now, I've already got the DVD version thanks to the films of the triple film pack back in Journey films of some time ago in 2016 after the release of Kung Fu Panda 3. So I'm still curious to know about the fact I'm still guaranteed able to get Kung Fu Panda 4 on DVD once that film decides to come out on DVD, and during at some point, probably during the films have been summer season. It could be either be June or at some point in Journey films within July, which again is a bit difficult to tell at this point because again, we're probably not going to mention any spoilers for the time being for the likes of Kung Fu Panda 4 right now. So either way, as you can tell, we've already manage to completely done everything for Slippery Summons Plus, and now we move on to Mystic Forest Plus. And as far as I'm aware, this is where about the fact that certain stages in Time Attack mode gets a lot more difficult, mainly due to the forms of, you know, we have to rely on Mini Mario a lot. And fundamentally speaking though, is that once we make our way to, by the end of Twilight City, not only this is going to be the final time we're going to be guiding Mini Mario with a key, but also once we get to the boss in Journey Forms of Twilight City Plus, basically though, that will be a guaranteed able to take on Donkey Kong for the final time, because you probably already know about the fact that both Donkey Kong as a final boss, as well as the true final boss in Donkey Kong Plus, does not count on Time Attack mode, clearly because no matter what though, they just really couldn't seem to able to actually add in the last two stages in terms of Time Attack runs, so as a result, understandably so. Now as far as I'm aware, is that if you want to know how many gold medals there are, in terms of the forms of in a Time Attack mode, I believe it does have the exact same amount as the forms of how it does it for these gold stars. So basically though, we essentially going to be collecting 136 gold medals. So yeah, as a result, that's the amount of gold medals we can expect to get. So anyway though, so as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that also, there's also another thing I wanted to mention about, is that, well, suffice to say, happy 25th anniversary of the series release of Futurama, which as a result, man, time flies. Especially noticeable about the fact that I believe that Sonic did somehow tell me about the fact that when he was younger, basically though, he did somehow manage to watch some episodes of Futurama on TV, and as a result, I don't even know that, which is especially noticeable because every now and then that Futurama has now appeared in new forms of on Disney Plus right now. Speaking of Disney Plus though, actually, there's one thing I totally forgot to mention about since in yesterday actually, that as it turns out, the colored background of Disney Plus, not only for the loading screen, but it's also with the app icon as well. For whatever reason, the color backgrounds did somehow change, which as a result, I'm almost assuming about the fact that they'll kept it as in black and blue merged together. Well, instead of that, they somehow changed color into turquoise color, which I have no idea why they come across for that point, which the first time I actually encountered that is when I finished watching a Barbie film back in Journey Phones Within yesterday, so as a result, yeah, I've honestly have no idea why they come across for that change. So I'm guessing it's kind of feels a bit, well, it's a bit tricky to explain because I already know for a fact that it's been quite some time actually since I actually have last used Disney Plus, since every once in a while I still manage to watch The Simpsons from time to time, and maybe occasional films every once in a while, and maybe at some point in Journey Films a bit next month, or perhaps even maybe 2 months time, maybe I should probably able to give the second chance for able to actually see Monsters at Work just before season 2 is going to be on its way for Monsters at Work, which we pretty much already on about it, especially noticeable because I'm still very curious to know of what really happens after the events of the first season has been ended. Well, mind you, I still haven't exactly get a chance to see the majority of the episodes just yet, but hopefully by that time, once the, the second season rolls around, then I should probably give the actual series another chance, especially noticeable because I felt incredibly bad for able to actually miss out on a lot of things. So just because that again though is about the fact that back in 2021 that I was pretty much busy doing the forms of not only a lot of recording sessions, but also trying out some new games back in 2021. To be more specifically though, when it comes to experiencing or playing rather The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, for I've heard anyway, as well as the forms of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, so just to ensure I can able to actually just do a practice run just before the Let's Play did somehow happen later on in 2021. So anyway though, back into what I was saying about the forms of the most recent 25th anniversary of Futurama. Well, looking back on it though, I've personally found it to be a pretty underrated gem, especially noticeable despite the fact that the actual visual style looks incredibly similar to not only The Simpsons, but maybe as well as Family Guy or something? Well, mind you, I haven't exactly watched that much of Family Guy, I must be honest here. Well, this is mainly because I'm pretty much more accustomed to the forms of The Simpsons, as well as maybe a little bit on Futurama, but I will say though is about the fact that Bender is the most iconic character. Although, kind of thinking about it though, that what I found was a little bit fascinating is that one of those particular crossover episodes between both The Simpsons and Futurama, that appears to be about the fact that, well, between Homer and Bender, they look almost exactly a look-alike, except the fact that obviously that Bender, he's a robot, whilst for Homer, he was actually a human being. So, yeah, I found it was a little bit fascinating, especially noticeable how the design's almost like a look-alike. Well, that again though, is just about the fact that it's just all with the different designs and all that stuff, which, as a result, you probably get the idea what I'm talking about, so but anywho, so as you can tell, we're now facing off against with Donkey Kong again, with dealing with Bob-Bombs yet again, so exponentially speaking, we did kick his butt, no problem. So because of that though, only one more Donkey Kong boss fight in terms of the time attack trials, so relatively speaking not long now until we basically finish up everything. So yeah, as a result, I think we've only got 3 page catalogs left, which there are. Well, we're going on to World 8 Plus now, which is of course Twilight City Plus, in some cases the final plus world in terms of the time attack run, so exponentially speaking though is about the fact that this is where you know, this entire world, alongside with the forms of the majority of some expert stages though, the timing is a bit too strict for my eyes when it comes to able to try to achieve the gold medal sometimes, because, well, luckily though you can able to retry as many times as you wanted to, but it's just about the fact that you need to be so perfect when it comes to able to try to beat those certain times, because if your time expires, then obviously you have to start all over again, which thankfully though, unlike the ones how it does it in some of those games, like Sonic and the Secret Rings, that basically though, the longer you spend on the level, basically though, it's just about the fact you were able to actually get 3 different medals, which is gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal. I'm guessing this is all based off from time, whilst compared to scores, it's just for the sake of the forms of experience points that you can able to level up yourself, so you can unlock certain skills, power-ups, you name it. So, but anyways though, now as far as I'm aware, is that once we get to the forms within, let's just say level 8-6+, that you never believe of what is going to happen and during at some point whenever we get to that particular stage. I mean, for the most part though, it's just about the fact that obviously, like I said before, we need to be absolute perfect, or in some cases perfection, if you really want able to beat a certain amount of time until you're able to actually guarantee to able to get one of the medals. Although what's even weird though is about the fact that there's no online leaderboards in terms of the forms of participating in time attack mode, whilst it's kind of weird honestly. So as you can see right there, that was awfully close too, especially noticeable. I almost assumed that Mini Mario is gonna die automatically thanks to the forms of that specific wretch as one of those projectiles that the Black Shy Guy just somehow tossed. So that was a lucky dodge for Mini Mario anyway. So, and as far as you no doubted by now, that this will be the final time we're going to be able to actually see Mini Mario delivering a key to us, which as a result, once we're done with the forms of every single stages, for the sake of the forms of Twilight City Plus, then exponentially speaking, it's just Mario all by himself, although we still need to able to actually carry the key all the way to the actual locked door, so just in case we can able to actually do the usual standard stuff. So, but I digress. So, also, as far as I did notice something about this as well, is about the fact that, as it turns out, in regards to the forms of the highest rated Marvel film or Marvel TV shows, as far as I'm aware, that they did somehow manage able to address the top 3 highest rated Marvel TV shows on Rotten Tomatoes, and 3 of them are which is, well, entirely Marvel, like I stated this earlier. So those are X-Men 97, Ms. Marvel, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, as far as I'm aware, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did somehow receive 95 out of 100%, and Ms. Marvel receives, actually kind of think about it, it was actually a massive tie between both Ms. Marvel and X-Men 97, because basically both of those series in general receives 98% out of 100. So that was actually unexpected, especially noticeable, because I'm almost assuming about the fact that X-Men 97 is expected to able to actually stuck on 100% in terms of the actual review scores. Well, as it turns out, no matter what though, it's about the fact that it was now between 2 ties between both of those series in general. So yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. So anyway, so I believe we are now moving on to let's just say the next topic at this point, in regards to the forms of what is going to happen, is that, potentially speaking of, is about the fact that, yes indeed, in addition about the fact that we've also did manage to able to receive, you know, like I said before, I received one of those chocolate eggs for, thanks to the forms of Pinkie Pie, but also we've somehow received quite a bit of cash. So, as a result, suffice to say for this point, is that exponentially, once we make our way towards at the very end of April, I think this could be a perfect opportunity for me, so that way I can able to actually decide able to pre-order Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch, and during at some point in April, and as far as I'm aware, we will able to pre-order not only Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, as well as Luigi's Mansion 2 HD at some point on May. So, yeah, that's as far as I can able to expect. So, anyways, here we go now on to level 8-6+, in some cases the final level where you're able to actually guide Mini Mario all the way to the goal. Well, as it turns out, in Journey Forms of this run anyway, might come off as a bit of a surprise, because I'm almost assuming about the fact that I'm almost gonna able to screw up a lot of times. Well, as it turns out, you see why in this footage right now. Basically though, we need to be fast on this part, as to be expected. So, no matter what though, is about the fact that once we get to the end portion of this though, well, exponentially speaking, as you can tell, that I've almost screwed up right there. Well, exponentially, I can still able to make it in the nick of time, thanks to the forms of continuous amount of, handstands and all that stuff though, which as a result, yeah, it is seriously unbelievable. Yeah, you might able to see what happens, especially noticeable that, well, I'll explain more about that if we somehow managed able to think of something else in regards to the forms of news and discussions alike. So yeah, as you can see, I somehow just got onto the exact time target, so as a result, I somehow beat it exactly 50 seconds. So, yeah, it's pretty unexpected though, especially concerning for the fact that, again, that was actually the closest thing I've ever encountered so far. In terms of the forms of this entire remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, basically, so... But anyway, folks, here we go on to the final Donkey Kong boss fight in the time attack mode, just because then again, there was no way we can able to actually go ahead and try to fight the true final boss against with Donkey Kong Plus in a time attack fashion, just because then again though, that particular option is not available. Speaking of something else, I would like to mention that yes, if you do manage able to play this game on 2-player mode, that obviously you won't be able to actually access to time attack mode. I think I've already established that before, I guess. Well, exponentially speaking though, that's as far as I can try to explain any of these things. So, yeah, for the most part, Twilight City Plus is definitely a little bit tricky, as long as you need to be fast on certain stages, specifically with, you know what I'm saying, with World 8-6 Plus, as well as the forms of, World 8-1 Plus, just because you need to be exact, you know, trying to be the quickest, so just in case you can able to actually beat that specific time. So, there we go folks, Twilight City Plus is done, and now we move on to the last batch of levels in terms of participating in time attack mode, that's of course expert stages, and fundamentally speaking though, this will be the definition of the final time to able to actually explore into specific worlds, ranging from Mario Toy Company all the way up to Twilight City Plus, basically. So because of that though, hopefully this particular run doesn't go completely dragged on at points, although mind you, there is that particular level coming up that it tends to drag on a bit, so that again, we'll explain more about that in a moment. So for now, let's get into the forms of the next topic at this point, and that's what appears to be about the fact that recently also, that certain books for Inside Out 2 has been released during the forms of some time ago, and as it turns out, not only does it contain a sticker book alongside with the forms of the actual art of you know, Inside Out 2, and as far as I'm aware, I'm guessing so anyway, you're able to actually contain some spoiler elements to that particular film, which as a result, I'm probably not going to buy the merchandise for Inside Out 2 anytime soon, just because obviously the film itself wasn't exactly released yet, so no matter what though, it's best to able to ignore any of those spoilers thanks to the forms of those specific storytelling books, because I remember about the fact that Sonic did actually tell me something about this as well, that just before when Toy Story 4 is about to release on the big screen, as far as when he did manage to encounter something, that obviously one of those specific books, which appears to be Toy Story 4 storybook, and as a result, they did somehow manage able to spoil some ending portions of Toy Story 4 just before the film actually came out during the films in 2019, specifically around the same time as when Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. So, yeah, to be more specifically the UK version, for I've noticed. So, yeah, that seems very, odd things to know. So, anyway, so the next thing I want to address something about this as well, what I found was a little bit fascinating for my part, is that whenever we did manage to able to see, Kung Fu Panda 4, since in Journey Films have been, let's just say 3 days ago at this point, that what I found was a little bit fascinating is that before the actual film starts, at least specifically in Odeon, there was this unexpected advertisement that I somehow managed to stumble across into before we watched Kung Fu Panda 4. Well, as it turns out, I actually come across into Princess Peach Showtime advertisements just before the film just somehow began. So, and I was like, that was very unexpected, able to actually show us a Nintendo Switch game featuring Princess Peach while watching a DreamWorks movie, which is pretty interesting, all things considered. Not exactly sure how that's going to be represented for. Well, let's face it though, it's about the fact that after all, we still managed to get the game after all, but I still managed to enjoy it for what it is, despite the fact that it does have some issues from time to time. Well, still, we'll discuss more about that if we decide to do that particular Let's Play. So, at least we have no idea when is it going to happen exactly, just because at this point in time that I'm getting very close towards the end of this right now, and especially noticeable that by that time until next week, that hopefully Coco Bandicoot should be able to finish up everything for the likes of Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, and as far as I'm aware, Maxi is still working on the forms of a bunch of DLC stuff for the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, so I can totally see why that Sonic 06 might take a bit while to able to actually complete it in terms of the forms of the Let's Play department, which as a result, it's pretty expected just because of all that, you know, DLC needs to show off, and on top of all that stuff though, just pretty much everything else in general, so... Which is, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that, just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Unleashed for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3, as well as the forms of Sonic Generations on the Xbox 360 version, and on top of that, the Wii U version of Sonic Lost World, and especially noticeable with Episode Shadow, and even with Super Sonic free DLC in Sonic Forces, that as a result, we did somehow manage to show those off, in addition with the forms of some massive amounts of free DLC updates for Sonic Frontiers, so it feels like the exact same trend as the forms of how it does it in, well, for Sonic 06, and maybe at some point, if we decide able to do a redo Let's Play of Sonic Mania, so that way we can able to show off plus content, to be more specifically with, you know what I'm saying, with Mighty and Ray as playable characters, in addition with the forms of Encore mode, and you probably named the rest, so... Anyway though, let's talk about the forms of another topic at this point, which I was not expecting. Now, as far as I did somehow manage able to say something back in during the forms spin yesterday, that obviously recently that F-Zero 99 has received some new updates here and there, likely also on version 1.3.0 patch update. Well, I've already mentioned about quite a few stuff, which as a result, it features like, you know, Mirror Grand Prix, as well as the forms of some other stuff in general. Well, you know what I'm saying with the forms of Smart Steering or Steer Assist feature, which it turns out there is actually more to it than that in regards to the forms of that particular update. Like for instance, is that I'm pretty sure that Assist Steer or Steer Assist is not going to be used on Classic mode, to be expected, because obviously if you're trying to experience something retro, obviously new assist mode will not be acceptable, at least as far as I'm aware. And the next thing they did somehow pointing out is that in practice mode has been expanded in addition to the previous 15 courses, and also with classic tracks and mirror tracks are now unlocked for practice. So, and on top of all that stuff though, added classic mini Grand Prix to special events. It's a 3-race series with classic rules and courses. And specifically though, when it comes to courses they somehow included, which there are Silence, as well as White Land 2 and Firefield will appear. And I think I've already mentioned about the forms of the additional challenges here and there. And there was also the fact that there was actually a notification saying about the fact that if you press the L button on the main menu, and you weren't able to advance to the challenge highlight screen. And in addition to that, there's also added in boost colors and spin effects for machine customizations, as well as backdrops, badges, and borders for pilot card customization. And after specified conditions are met and these can be used for customization. So, and if you really want to check out that specific conditions, then obviously you get the idea for this point. I would have liked able to explain something else for this point, guys, but honestly though, that's as far as I can try to able to say about this from the get-go though. So, anyway, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well. I've recently decided able to rename specific parts, not only for the likes of in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, but also with the forms of Mario Party Advance recently, because as far as I'm aware, recently I did somehow renamed some parts in Mario Party Advance, which appears to be Let's Play Mario Party Advance Shroom City, because as far as I'm aware about the fact they'll just make the actual title confusing without it. So, relatively speaking though, I did somehow manage able to fix that specific title, and that could be also applies for Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing back in 2017, that we did somehow manage able to rename it Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Grand Prix, with 6 parts combined, because, spoiler alert, at some point in the future, I think it's definitely possible for me to able to actually decide able to tackle through a mission mode on Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing at some point, which, then again, we're not exactly sure of when are we going to do it exactly, for sure, just because, you know, we're still on the phones in the entire process of able to actually decide able to finish up a couple of Let's Plays first, ranging from, you know, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake, and Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series, Sonic 06, or Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and maybe we can able to actually decide able to do whatever the next game we'd like to do next. So, now as far as I'm aware, is that, yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Did you guys somehow manage to able to enjoy Easter so far? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'd like to hear your thoughts, especially noticeable because, like I said before, I did manage to able to enjoy, you know, quite a few chocolate eggs I've somehow eaten, and on top of that, I'm very appreciated that I've got a lot of cash recently, especially noticeable because hopefully by that time until when April decides to come to a close, obviously it's about time for me to able to actually pre-order Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake, so I can definitely cannot wait to able to actually play that amazing legendary RPG game for Mario again, and this time you can now play the game on the go. So, pretty fantastic on my ad. So, I mean, what's next though after the forms of, well, it's kind of difficult to tell at this point for right about now. I mean, sure enough though, like, we've already on about this already, and I'm afraid to tell you is about the fact I don't think it's possible for ND World in this month. So because of that though, maybe it's still happening at some point, but we just can't really tell at this point, just because then again, rumors and leaks keeps popping up, and I'm sick of tired of it. I am seriously sick and tired of this, especially noticeable not only it's getting repetitive, but it's also about the fact that the actual information, from what I've read anyway, is incredibly vague, and on top of that, misspelling, and on top of all that stuff though, just anything else in general. So, but anyway, so let's just go ahead and deal with this last, you know, Mario Toy Factory kind of level. So exponentially speaking now, if you couldn't tell already, we now moved on to the halfway point in terms of participating in time attack mode for the likes of the expert stages basically. So anyways, let's move on now to the forms of Expert 10. Now, as far as I'm aware, do you guys even remember back on the original Game Boy Advance version of this stage? Well, basically, if you did drop at one point, you die automatically, and that was really painful. Well, in the remake, on the other hand, well, exponentially speaking now, I obviously have no idea why I somehow died right there. Well, that's just mainly because I didn't pay attention to its footing, but even then, I just want to show you guys of what really happens if you dare fall off to the highest height. So, basically, right there, you don't die anymore. So basically, you just get stunned, and that's the only positive thing I can probably say about this. Especially noticeable that, again, lives don't really punish you this time around, though. At least as far as I'm assuming so, anyway. So, but yeah, that's as far as I can try to show you of what happens if you dare drop into the highest height. Compared to the forms of how it does in the original version on the Game Boy Advance. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about this, I guess. So, now, I'm going to start talking about that one of the, yet another levels that does give me some bit of trouble back in during the forms of when I first played this game. The next level that does give me a lot of trouble for time attack mode, and that's what appears to be Expert 14. Expert 14, you probably already know about that particular stage as far as I'm aware. It involves around a lot of multitasking, ranging from tossing up specific springs onto specific spots, and you pretty much know the rest of it though. And whenever I first got to that particular stage on time attack mode, my goodness, it did took me about 20 attempts, because obviously I did keep on messing things up whenever I first experienced for that point. And also, I don't suppose if you noticed, but I do apologize for that annoying background noise you're going to be hearing from my commentary because, well, unfortunately though, the weather conditions is still not that very great. Although exponentially speaking though, luckily though, until when it gets to the point in during the Forms event at some point on May, or perhaps even maybe during at some point in summer, thankfully though, the weather conditions should be a lot more better, well, expecting to believe about the fact that we might come across into heat wave at some point in the majority of the forms of the summer season. So, anyway, and yeah, I'm just really sick of the forms of this miserable weather again, especially noticeable because not only because the wind is really starting to get on my nerves, but it's also about the fact that we're probably not going to be able to let the, well, it's just about the fact that no matter what though, our front door just keeps on rattling every single second worth noting for when the wind decides to come over, which as a result, that is so annoyingly irritating. So, anyway, and suffice to say at this point, is that it looks like the time itself is now going forward right now, so potentially speaking is about the fact that we might able to actually lose 1 hour of sleep, so at least as far as whenever I did manage to found things out anyway. So, anyway, let's move on now to, without a doubt, is one of the quickest expert stages where you can able to participating in time attack mode. Well, I won't say things too much about it because, as you can tell, I accidentally died from that particular phantom guy right there because, obviously, I somehow managed to get onto that yellow block at the wrong timing, so... Oh well, no big deal though, because aside from that, you can potentially try to beat this level no problem if you do need to crouch at one point, because otherwise, crouching is important just in case you don't want to die by those phantom ghosts, or phantom Shy Guy ghosts after all. So either way, now I think suffice to say, that basically takes care of the forms of the majority of the phantom Shy Guys, and I think that's going to be the final time seeing these, because obviously about the fact that we've only got 3 levels left, and exponentially, that once we're done with the last 3 stages in terms of participating in time attack mode, well, suffice to say, that's gonna be it basically, for the majority of the remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong. So, and suffice to say for this point guys, I will say it's a pretty enjoyable time in my eyes. Although, it isn't perfect by any means, like I really do miss the forms of the actual charm to the forms of the original Game Boy Advance version, with that particular voice lines for Mario in general. Although, to be fair though, it is nice to be able to hear Charles as a voice do return in this remake, which that's as far as I can try to say about it. So, for the most part though, is about the fact that I can honestly say you can probably able to actually recommend experiencing Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Switch as a remake. I mean, no matter what though, is about the fact that despite the fact that, well, you know what I'm saying. So even then, though, it's just a remake, not a new game per se, like no new installments. So understandably so, they're able to bring back the classic original to the Game Boy, or to be more specifically, for the Nintendo Switch, most likely. So, which I already know for a fact it's been quite a while since I actually have last touched upon this game, just because I'm still in the middle of the process of playing Princess Peach Showtime, because obviously, well, again, I'm probably not going to mention any spoilers for that game either, just because, you know, that game is the most recent. So, anyways, as you can tell with Expert 15 right here, this level is pretty tricky on time attack mode as well, just because you need to rely on that specific clever thinking, but as a result, I've got this no problem. So because of that though, because of that particular conveyor belt does not change at all in terms of specific directions, at least as far as I'm aware. And here we go folks, on to the final stage of the entire game again, and this time we're going to be doing this on time attack mode. And because of that though, thankfully this stage doesn't take me that long to complete, especially noticeable because thankfully with the forms of if you get hit by the one of those specific lasers, or specifically if you try to let the bob bomb appears, and then basically if you get hit by a laser, thankfully the invincibility frames decides to come in, and exponentially speaking though, you can only aim onto the right breakable wall rather than the left, because obviously presence and 1-up mushrooms does not appear in the actual time attack mode. So, and yeah, that's as far as I can try to say about this. So, and if you're probably wondering what really happens if you do manage to able to gather every single gold medals in the Forms Within a Time Attack mode in this remake, well, suffice to say, you get nothing. They're just there for the sake of bragging rights. So, unless if you really want to go for a true completion, well, by all means, you might as well able to say that there's nothing right to home about. And exponentially speaking though, it doesn't help about the fact that there is no platinum medals to be found if you do manage to get its true completionist right here. So, and it's also worth noting for is that yes, we've already maxed out, you know, with the amount of lives we have. So exponentially speaking though, yeah, I don't think it's a possibility to able to actually get the platinum medal, which again, beggars can't be choosers. So, yeah, that is it, folks. We fully 100% everything in Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake for the Nintendo Switch. So, this is actually kind of lengthy, what I was not expecting for this point. So because of that though, yeah, as you can see that it says all cleared now. So this means we've gathered every single pieces and all that stuff. Now before we end off this entire playthrough off, let me show you some quick extra stuff. Aside from 2-player mode, where you basically, one player can take control of Mario, and then player 2 can able to take control of Toad. But there's also 2 different keys you can able to obtain. One of them is the gold key, and the other one is the silver key. And there's also the point where the fact that every time when you die at one point, basically you're able to actually trap into the bubble. And as you can see, we're going to be showing off the casual mode, where basically though what happens was, if casual mode decides to be active, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of differences you might able to realize. Basically though, we now have checkpoint flags, which every time you get hit by Shy Guys, as you can tell, basically though you trap into a bubble, and basically if you do get hit right there, basically the bubble will automatically guide you onto the forms of the checkpoint flag. So that'll be pretty useful though, especially noticeable if you get frustrated on certain stages. And as far as I'm aware, you can only carry up to 5 bubbles, because if you run out of bubbles, and if you die for the 6th and probably the final time, you lose a life. So, and also as you can tell that I somehow ignored those presents, which actually gives us a silver star instead. So because of that though, that's what really happens if you do manage to able to skip over those presents as pickups. So anyways, and I suppose there are quite a small amount of things we can also show off, like the controls is self-explanatory, guides which allows you to able to know how to play the game, and also much like the original Game Boy Advance version, is that you can able to rewatch that specific cutscenes, including credits. And if we go on to the forms of the next page, basically though we can able to once again hear the background music in addition to some sound effects. So yeah, pretty substantial, all things considered. So yeah, in terms of everything else I can probably say about this at this point, guys, yeah, that's as far as we can show off to you guys. So, hope you guys do enjoy this particular playthrough, because I surely do. Especially noticeable, it's pretty nice to be able to go back onto the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong, except it's a brand new remake, rather than just, well, you know what I'm saying. So, hope you guys do enjoy it, and this is me, Starlight Glimmer, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. I suppose next up on the actual Let's Plays to do is that we might able to actually do Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars for the Wii U. Well, I won't say for this much. Well, you'll soon to find out. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye!